Today's show is brought to you by betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/Goodman. Use the promo code CLNS50 for a 50% bonus on your next deposit. Welcome to another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Goodman, and we got another good show for you today. We've got new Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg, and we'll talk about the adjustment going from college to the NBA, back to the NBA. What's the biggest adjustment between the two levels? The Bulls, what happened there, and his thoughts on whether he got a fair shake. Nebraska, his relationship with Brad Stevens. A little bit of everything from Fred Hoiberg. Remember, subscribe to the pod. You can do that wherever you listen to your podcast. iTunes, Stitcher. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can find me at CLNS Media. Also at WatchStadium.com. Try to have at least one, if not two, podcasts every single week. And we'll hit on all levels. And we're doing that today, certainly with a crossover of Fred Hoiberg. So let's get to him. Now, pleased to welcome in the new coach at Nebraska. And does it sound right by now, Fred Hoiberg, or does it still sound a little bit strange?
No, it absolutely sounds right, Jeff. The big thing for me is I have a lot of history at this university and in the state of Nebraska. It goes back to my grandparents. My grandfather on my dad's side was a professor at Nebraska for about 30 years. He was in the sociology department, the history department. And, to hear from people that, he had the guidance for, that were under him, just to hear the impact that he had on their lives, is a lot of fun to hear. And then my mother's father was a basketball coach here from 1955 to 1963, and, still has the greatest week in Nebraska basketball history. He knocked off, I think it was 1958, where he beat Kansas, led by Will Chamberlain. Was such a big win that the chancellor actually called school off the next day. And they followed that up with a win against Kansas State, who was number one team in the nation the following week, that was led by Bob Boozer. So,
wow.
It's really fun to hear those stories. And we were out on a speaking tour yesterday, and one of the stops that we made, one of my grandfather's former student manager came up and talked to me. And again, just, I think a big responsibility for coaches is to help these kids when they come in as 18-year-old, wide-eyed, not really sure what their future holds, to help mold them and shape them into grown men when they leave your program. And that's exactly what, this gentleman talked to me about yesterday. And it's just really cool to hear all those stories of the impact that, both grandfathers had on these kids' lives. And then my parents both went to the University of Nebraska. My dad got his PhD in sociology back in 1974, and I was born in Lincoln. And then when I was 2, my dad had 2 offers. He had the job offer at the University of Kansas, and he had one at Iowa State. I'm forever grateful to my father for making the right decision and moving our family to Ames.
What are you trying to say here? So what will it take for Nebraska to, you think, call school off now? What do you have to do? Do you have to win the national title?
It's probably the football team would win the national championship.
Yeah, that would do it.
That's probably what it would take.
No, I think if you won the national title, I think you'd be fine. I think either football or basketball, and you're just fine. They'll call it off for at least a day.
Yeah, but no, it's really cool, Jeff. It just, I did spend a lot of time here as a kid. We would always come out for Thanksgiving or Christmas and spend time. Not only with my grandparents, but I had an aunt and uncle in a small town about an hour west of Lincoln. My brother lives here. I've got 2 cousins and their families that live in Lincoln. My aunt and uncle now live in Lincoln. So, it's really been cool to get all these connections to my family.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized it was that deep, right? I mean, everybody just kind of associates you with Iowa State and nothing else. And when the Nebraska job came open, you start to Google your name and you see your grandfather coached, and I didn't know your other grandfather was a professor, but obviously that explains a lot. And I don't think people realize what Nebraska has. Now, again, the recruiting base isn't great in the state. We know that. But facilities, fan support. I mean, they're insane there. I mean, they really are. Like, they want a winner, and they will support a program.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's the two biggest things that are important in when you're recruiting these kids is, they want to see great facilities. And when I was coaching the Bulls a couple of years ago, we played an exhibition game at our arena, which is Pinnacle Bank Arena, and I was just blown away. You don't see very many arenas like that in the college basketball world, and I think it's the nicest arena in the country. And the support that we have, we sold every ticket for next season already. We'll have 15,500 and fill that arena up on a nightly basis. And when you look at everything all across the athletic department, the football program, for example, every seat in Memorial Stadium has been filled since 1962. Volleyball is standing room only. The baseball program is having a great year. They're about to start playing in the regionals. They sell out their games. So, it really is a great athletic department to be a part of. The way they take care of the athletes here with their training tables, with nutritionists on staff, with, sports psychiatrists there for every program. So I've been blown away by everything that I've seen. My family and the history that we have here kind of got me interested in the job. But then when I saw the facilities and you see the great support that they have here, that's what put it over the top.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt like that job might not be good enough for you to take. On first glance, everybody was thinking UCLA, that's the job. It fits you in terms of, you're a big name. UCLA wanted a big name. What happened with UCLA, Fred? What did that just not really materialize on either end?
Yeah, I won't talk specifics about that, Jeff. But again, when I looked at the different options that I had and everything that I could have done this season, especially after I got let go in December from the Bulls, and I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that went on in the 3+ years that I was in Chicago, things that I did that I liked, and things that I reflected back on and know that I could have done better. And then you start thinking about your future and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And there was a lot of things that I could have done this year, and one of them was sitting out. That just after about a month and a half of doing yoga with my wife and her friends and drinking coffee with them and talking about TV shows and doing crossword puzzles and watching game shows. I was ready to get back into it. And then it became, what level do I want to go into next? And part of me thought I could wait out the season and see if there were NBA jobs that would have opened that I would have been interested in, or were there college situations. And the thing again that really attracted me to Nebraska was not only the things we talked about with the facilities and the support, but I also felt that we could build this program up very similar to how we did it at Iowa State, and kind of have the blueprint that we had there as far as recruiting different areas, as far as transfers and junior college players and 4-year players, and put the roster together that way. And I think when you've seen the players that we signed 11 players in the first 6 weeks, and out of those 11, 5 of them are junior college players. We've got 3 freshmen, and we've got 2 junior college players, and we've got a couple returning back from last year. So it's something that's been a lot of work, but I really do like the way that we can build the program here. And again, we take a lot of what we did with our experience at Iowa State.
All right, so before we get into some Nebraska stuff, some transfers, some college to NBA, you said you had a lot of time off. What favorite TV show? Did your wife have you watching The Bachelorette all the time?
I did. Actually, it was actually The Bachelor last year. The Bachelorette's going on now, which I think I saw one episode with, what's her name? Girl from Alabama.
I don't know. I'm forced to watch it a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
So, I kind of, Jeff, to be honest with you, I kind of was a game show guy. I'd get up early in the morning, I'd watch Good Morning America, and then I would go the game show route. So
Price is Right?
That's kind of what The Price is Right was great. Let's Make a Deal. Those were kind of the two that I was watching.
So you're literally sitting in front of the TV all morning watching game shows?
What's that?
You're literally sitting in front of the TV all morning watching game shows?
Well, yeah, a lot of mornings I did. And, it's kind of funny. You talk about getting back into it. You really do miss the grind after a while. You get so caught up in it, but when you just, you wake up and you say, what am I going to do? And it was hard. That first month, I didn't sleep at all after I was let go, and it's hard. I'd never had any type of situation like that. I went from 10 years playing in the NBA. I had a heart condition. I was forced into an early retirement after an open heart surgery procedure back in 2005. I was very fortunate that Glenn Taylor and the Minnesota Timberwolves offered me a spot in the front office where I had 4 great years learning from a lot of great people, including Kevin McHale, who I worked under in the front office, Rob Babcock, who, was a great mentor to me. Rob, just passed away a couple days ago, went down for his service, but, he played a huge role in my career and my advancement, and some others as well. And then, the thing I really missed after, being in the front office for 4+ years, was being down on the floor and working with the players and having that competitive drive to get back out there and work with the guys. And thankfully that job at Iowa State came open, and Jamie Pollard gave me a great opportunity to go back to my alma mater, and those were 5 of the best years of my life coaching at Iowa State. Went in, ultimate goal, I think, when you're in any profession is to get to the top level, and I experienced that with the Bulls, which I'm thankful for that experience as well. And again, then you find yourself doing nothing, and I really hadn't had that. I had a little bit of time after my open heart surgeries where you can't do anything, but I was ready to get back into it and get to work. But that being said, Jeff, I remember taking a call from a friend in the business who was coaching, and he was miserable. I don't know what it is about us being miserable, but he called me and just was pissed off at his team, and he couldn't sleep, and he had all these things going on. He was on a 5-game losing streak, and he said, "What are you doing right now?" I said, "Well, I'm sitting here at my dining room table, drinking a cup of coffee, watching The Price is Right." And it just. Yep. And then, but again, I missed it, and I was ready to get back into it, and I'm thankful to be here at Nebraska.
So I remember when you were hired at Iowa State, it was what year? 2010, I think, right? 2010.
That's right. Yep.
So you were hired. I didn't know you at all, but I knew the track record of NBA guys, former NBA players coming over to college, and it wasn't pretty. I probably graded it. I don't want to look back at the grade, but it was probably a C or a D at that point. You made me look pretty bad with the grade for sure. Why are you the kind of one guy? You're honestly the one guy that stood out that's really hit it, going from being an NBA player to being a college coach. A lot of other guys, let's face it, haven't succeeded. Whether it's the work ethic, not understanding the fact that they're not fighting for their paycheck necessarily. If you've got $100 million in the bank, which I know you didn't coming from the NBA, but what do you think it was and is that the track record of former NBA guys is not exactly pretty coming over and coaching in college?
Well, I think the big thing for me, Jeff, I can only talk about my experience, is I hired a great staff right off the bat. And, it was important for me to try and keep on TJ Otzelberger as a guy that I thought did a great job of bringing some top-level talent to Ames, which, I know, wasn't easy. And, that was my first order of business, was to try to keep TJ on staff, and we got that deal done. The second thing I needed was a coach that had a lot of experience. I'd never coached before. And that came from Bobby Lutz. And Bobby had just been let go from the University of Charlotte, where he spent 12 years. And I believe he was in the tournament 9 times, whether it was NCAA or NIT. And we had a very similar philosophy on how we played. And as I got to know Bobby, he was very content on sitting out and doing, he was going to do some TV stuff and really kind of contemplate his future. But I was very lucky to talk Bobby into coming on board. And, those guys helped me tremendously. And then when I hired Matt Abdelmassi in my second year, Matt was a guy that I hired in Minnesota as an intern, and he just blew me away with his work ethic and his ability to build a relationship with the players. And, Matt was really the guy, along with those other two, TJ and Bobby, that helped, really get things turned around. And we started with transfers. And there was not a lot of schools at that time that went that route. And that first year when we took Chris Babb and Chris Allen and Royce White and Anthony Booker, you could see it. That first year we went 16-16. I players, and those guys went out and battled every single night. But what I saw was that scout team, just how together they played, the chemistry that they were building on a daily basis. And when those guys became eligible that following year and we got into the tournament, we were off and running, and then we went 4 straight. And, I honestly think had George Niang not broken his foot in the first round of the game against North Carolina Central, I think we had a chance to do something special that year. We still made it to the Sweet 16, knocked off Carolina, and lost to eventual champion UConn without arguably our most important players. So, I loved how we built that team. And again, I give my staff a lot of credit. And when you're going back into that level, after me, for example, I was in the NBA for 15 years as a player and as a front office executive. To go back to college, you need to surround yourself with great people. And I did that with that staff. And I have a lot of those guys back with me here at Nebraska. I've got Bobby Lutz as a special assistant. I hired Matt as my lead assistant. I got Doc Sadler, who worked for me also at Iowa State, to come back and help out in all areas as well. And then Armand Gates, I kept on from the previous staff. So, when you're getting back into that level, it's so important you surround yourself with the right people. And that's exactly what we did.
So we're just going to cut out any positive things you said about George Niang, just in case he listens to this podcast.
You know he's listening, Jeff. You know he's listening.
No, I love George. One of the best stories that I've been around. I remember seeing him when I went up to Tilton, and he would play against Nerlens and Wayne Selden. I didn't know who this kid was. And I remember I'm interviewing Nerlens on the side in between games. Maybe they're playing pickup. And all of a sudden, this big fat dude yells over, and he's like, all right, let's go. Like, he's yelling at Nerlens to get back on the court, that they're ready to play again. And I'm watching the whole day, and George never lost a game. He never came off the court the entire day. And it's a cool story. I mean, listen, he's a self-made player who had to pay his own way at Tilton. And I don't know what, obviously he's got that work ethic. We know that, and the high IQ and everything like that, and has gotten his body obviously so much better to be able to stick right now in the NBA. What was the one thing that stood out to you the most about him? Was it his IQ?
And I agree with you. Leo Papil, who's a good friend of mine, Leo worked for the Celtics, and when I was working with the Timberwolves front office, I'd spent a lot of time to see Leo on the road when we were scouting games, and he was the head of the BABC program. And he said, I promise you, he said, if you come out and see this kid, George Niang, you're going to fall in love with him. And I went out to Tilton's practice, and I'm sitting there, I'm pretty new to this whole world, and I'm sitting there with Roy Williams and John Calipari and Mike Krzyzewski and all these, top-level coaches that were there watching Nerlens and Wayne Selden and Good Luck and those players. And there's George sitting over there with his baby fat, and but he abused those guys in that workout. And jump hook, right hand, left hand, he'd step out, he'd shoot the threes over the top. And I called Leo right there, and I said, Leo, I am offering this kid right now, and I'm going to do everything I can to make this kid my number one recruit. And he came out to visit, and he visited Iowa State and Iowa. And, he enjoyed both visits very much, and we just continued to build a relationship. And, it's very fortunate to get him. He's as important a person that we got at Iowa State, and what he did for that fan base is absolutely phenomenal. He's a third all-time leading scorer, rebounds, assists. And more important than any of that is he was the guy that really established the culture for our players. And, we get such a limited amount of time with the student athlete. And for George, he was the guy that would get everybody in the gym when they weren't required to be there. And he was the one that would hold everybody accountable. It's exactly what you said. You're doing an interview. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to play. Yep. And he wants to get better. And that's what he did. And you look at his body from when he got to Iowa State, from when he left, and he posted a picture of what it looked like. He dedicated himself for 4 years so he could accomplish his goal of getting in the NBA. And I give him so much credit for doing that and establishing the culture at Iowa State.
The best is, have you seen the picture he showed me of when he was younger, maybe 13, when he wrote Michigan on his stomach, but he spelled it wrong?
I know exactly. Yeah.
Classic. Absolutely classic. I need to get that around his team. I need to get that to like everybody on the Jazz at some point in the offseason so they can maybe plaster it all over the locker room.
Yeah. But, I'll say this about George, and you know this, Jeff, get to know him, and he's just one of those guys. You can always bet on him.
Yep.
And people always said, is he athletic enough? I said, to be honest with you, probably not, but he's going to make your team. He's going to make your team better. And, even watching the Jazz in the playoffs this year, I thought when George was on the floor, he made as positive an impact as any player in the roster. He was phenomenal when he was out there. And I think you can see that with his analytic numbers. But, just a kid that's very easy to root for.
Quick break to tell you today's show is brought to you by betonline.ag. The NBA Finals underway. You can get the current odds here. Golden State, Toronto, who you picking to win it all? I still like Golden State in this one. You can also bet on all the free agents. Where will Jimmy Butler end up? Where will Kyrie end up? Tobias Harris, you name it. BetOnline.ag has all of them. Nobody else can claim that. Make sure you go to clnsmedia.com/Goodman. Get a 50% bonus when you sign up. Use the promo code CLNS50. Do not be left on the sideline with all this excitement going on the court. Plus, you can bet in BetOnline's virtual casino. Make some money there, too. You got futures. You got Major League Baseball. We got Stanley Cup, NFL futures. There's everything going on right now. So make sure you get a betonline.ag and use the promo code CLNS50 for a 50% bonus on your first deposit, or go to clnsmedia.com/Goodman. All right, so which is tougher? Which is more taxing? How's that? Coaching in college or coaching in the NBA, and why?
It's a great question. The thing about they're both taxing, and there's a lot of pressure in both. And with the college, obviously, you spend a lot of time with the recruiting aspect.
Yep.
And in the NBA, that's the front office. That's their job, and especially when they're going through the draft. People always ask, did you have a say in who you were going to draft? I said I had a voice, but I shouldn't have a say because I'm focused on my team all year. Their job is to go out and scout everything and see everything that they do, how they handle a practice, what they look like in a huddle, are they being supportive of their teammates. They're interviewing everybody that's in these kids' background. So, that's their job. You obviously watch a lot of film on it, but the job of the front office is to put the roster together. In college, that's the job of the coaches. So you do spend a lot of time recruiting and watching film and on the trail, and you put the team together that you think best fits your system. The other thing with, obviously the academic piece is something that you spend a lot of time in. You understand how important that is to put these kids on track to get their degree and to graduate. And, in the NBA, the one thing there is it's basketball, and that's all it is. And, the same importance of building relationships, the same importance on trying to put your players in a position on the floor to utilize their skill sets and play to their strengths. But the biggest difference is in college game, with all the extra things that you have to do as far as putting your roster together. NBA, the grind of 82 games, the schedule, it's hard. And, the one thing that I had, I played 10 years, and, I worked in the front office, so I'd spent 15 years at that level, now 18. So, I knew that game very well. But, for college coaches to go up there, it is a difference. There's no doubt about it. And, you talk about, when you go from college to NBA, a lot of times coaches take over rebuilding situations. And that's tough. And when you go vice versa from the NBA to college, there's just so many little things that you have to learn about the whole college experience. And that's, again, the importance of what I talked about earlier, putting the right staff and the right people around you to help you out with those differences.
So how tough is it? Obviously, I try to cover both. Obviously, I cover more college. But, college is all about the coaches. I don't want to say all about, but certainly the program is about the coach first, where the NBA is clearly about the players. All you got to watch is who's on the refs to be able to tell. In college, it's the coaches nonstop. The kids don't say a word. And in the NBA, man, it is hard to watch sometimes because those stars and even the non-stars don't shut up on the refs. And is that the toughest adjustment? Is it going from egos of trying to coach these guys in the NBA when they're making more than you are compared to college, when they should be listening because, again, they want to get to that next level?
Yeah, the way I always approached it is, basketball's basketball. And, I ran and I do run, a pro style offense. And, for us in the NBA, it's really, it's more about the concepts. You have such little amount of practice time in the NBA, especially now with them shortening the preseason. You get basically 2 weeks of practice, and then you're playing your first regular season game. Back when I played, you got 30 days. You could have as many two-a-days as you wanted. There was no limit on contact. They've really changed that at the NBA level. So you have such little time to prepare. In college, you have so much practice time, and you're able to put in your system, and there's more plays that are run in the college game. As far as the egos and the personalities, again, it's all about trying to build a relationship with these kids as best you can and develop a trust factor with them to try to get them to perform to the best of their abilities. And I don't care what level you're at, high school all the way through the NBA, you have to have those qualities.
What the length of practice, Fred, like compare it, and I know I've talked to Brad Stevens quite a bit about it, but what do you normally go in college, or what will you go this year for the most part, and what did you end up going, and how often would you even go a week in the NBA?
Yeah, I'll start with the NBA. We practice probably more than most, just because of the age of our team these last couple of years. With when the decision was made to rebuild, which I think was the right move in Chicago, we did practice a lot. We would always try to get up and down and have competitive type practices as much as possible with that young group. When you have an older veteran type team, it's more maintenance, and you do a lot of individual work. And your younger players, if they're not getting a lot of minutes, you'll pull them to the side and play 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. But it's all about trying to stay fresh and keep those guys ready, if you're fortunate enough to get into the playoffs. In college, especially early on, it's a lot of work. We're fortunate this year. We're going to Italy. We're doing a foreign trip, so we get 10 extra practices. So that should give us a head start going into the season.
You can learn.
But you get 30.
You can learn your players' names, Fred. You can learn your players' names.
I'm going to do the best I can, Jeff. I'm still trying to figure that out. But it is something where you do go longer in college. You work extremely hard on the fundamentals, and we'll start doing that here next week. Our guys get back to school June 9th, and we're going to start those practices pretty quickly in a lot of individual skill work again to work on those fundamentals.
Going back to the Bulls this year, you were there 3+ years. Personally, I didn't feel like they gave you the right talent, the right types of players to fit your system. The Jimmy Butlers, the Rondos, those aren't the guys that are right for you. But beyond that, like, how much do you feel like you got a fair shake? Because even early this year, I mean, you were injured, you didn't have a lot of your top players, and you get fired after, I think it was like 25 games. How fair a shake do you think you got there to be able to turn the thing?
Well, first of all, I'll say this. I'm thankful for my time that I got. I'm thankful to the Bulls organization for the opportunity to coach at that level. And, there's some of the things we did that I'm proud of, Jeff. I look at especially that second year when we had Jimmy and we had Rondo and we had Wade. And after that, it was really a lot of young players. I think we played 5 guys in their first and second year in the league, and we were one of 4 teams that did that were in their rotation. And after some ups and downs through the regular season, that was a team that nobody predicted to be in the playoffs. We finished, I think, winning 10-12 or 11 out of 13 to get in it, and we're playing as well as anybody. And we had Boston down 2-0 in the first round of that series, and win both games on the road. And then Rondo, who was our advantage in that series, who had, I think, almost 2 triple-doubles in the first 2 games. He breaks his thumb in the middle of game 2, and he was out for the rest of that series. So who knows what would have happened? That group probably would have stayed together. Again, I thought we were playing as well as any team in the East at that time, and who knows how far we could have gone. But, that was a team that I thought really clicked and gelled at the most important time of the year. The following season, after the rebuild, we went through a lot of injuries early in the year. We had an altercation in practice. But when we were healthy for that 6-week stretch, we had the second-best record in the Eastern Conference. And, our guys were developing, and Lauri Markkanen, as a rookie, was having a phenomenal season. Chris Dunn was playing the best basketball of his career. Zach LaVine was coming back, and he was in and out of the lineup at that time. But we played a really, really good stretch of basketball during that time. And, those are a couple things that I look back on that I was really pleased with. But, again, the thing that I did, and I talked to a lot of people that had been in a similar situation that I was going through, that had been let go. And, you try to deal with it as best you can. I'm not one of those guys that look back and said, I got screwed. I did everything right. I know I could have done things better. And, it helped me to talk to people that had been through that, to get you through the tough times. And, for me, the way I'm looking at this is it's all about how I approach my next opportunity, which is here at Nebraska, and how am I going to make myself a better coach because of the situation that I went through in Chicago.
Did Brad Stevens talk to you guys, because obviously similar in terms of your personalities too, I think, not only coming from college, but you guys are both kind of lower maintenance guys. You're not going to jump guys very often. I think that's fair to say with both of you. You had Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, Rondo, three, big time ego guys that especially I've known Jimmy for a long time, and I'm here in Boston, so I saw Rondo. He's dealt with Kyrie this year. Did you guys talk? Did you have a relationship where you guys would talk about some of those things? Because again, he was fairly new to the college game. To the NBA game.
You know what? I do talk to Brad. I actually talked to Brad a couple days ago, just about a lot of different things. He was one of my absolutely one of my friends in that business, and our relationship goes back to when he was a Butler and I was at Iowa State, and we would recruit the same type of kid when we were on the road. And he's one of the best in the business. There's no doubt about that. And we keep in touch throughout the season. And again, I just think. When you look, I watched a lot of film on Brad's teams. I just love the way that he approaches it. They're always one of the best defensively, and some of the schemes and concepts that he does are very unique. And, the way offensively he gets the ball in the right guy's hands, I think he does a terrific job. So, we do keep in contact and talk about a lot of things.
What will you do? And you had success at Iowa State, so maybe you don't change much, if anything, coming back to college at Nebraska. But is there something that you'll do different this time around than maybe last time, just because of what you've gone through the last few years in the NBA?
Well, there's no doubt, Jeff, that I'm a better coach than when I left Iowa State. And when you spent 3+ years at the highest level coaching against the best minds in the world, you can't help but become a better coach. And there are some things that I'll do differently. There's no question about that. As far as specifically what exactly that is will depend on the skill set of our players, which we'll get to know pretty quickly here in these next couple of weeks. Again, I played a different system at Iowa State, really based on who we had on the floor. That first year, we had Deontay Garrett, who was a pure point guard and averaged about 20 points and led the Big 12 in assists, and helped him, spend a couple of years in the NBA, and he's been playing at a high level overseas since. That following year, we played, a very different type system than most college teams played when we put the ball in Royce White's hands, and you had a 6'8", 270-pound freight train coming down the floor with, some of the best shooting in the country. We led the nation in threes that year because of our 6'8" playmaker that we put the ball in his hands, and then Corey Lucius and Will Clyburn the following year. So, we really just tried to base our system on who our players were and what their talents were. So I'm still learning what this team's going to look like. I really like some of the pieces and players that we put together, and we're going to have a team out there that I think will be able to compete at the highest level.
You're going to see Royce White do his MMA or UFC or whatever he's involved in. Have you talked to him? Is he still training, and is that the goal?
I have talked to Royce, and it was good to see him. He's number one pick in the the Big Three.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see him back in the court. He belongs on the court.
So he's done with the
Royce White a lot.
He's done with the fighting. He's done with the MMA stuff.
I think he's still training with that, but I think that'll help him. In whatever path he goes down, as far as hopefully trying to play and get back to the highest level. Royce. I give Royce a lot of credit. He has really tried to speak out from day one for the mental health community, and Royce. He was unbelievable for me, and he was unbelievable for us and for Iowa State University for what he did. The biggest thing that we did with Royce is we built a trust factor with him. And, he would do anything for the coaches. He'd do anything for a teammate. And for what he tried to do, and you see it now, it's become, a much more prevalent issue in society. And when you see players like DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love and guys like that are speaking out now, Royce was doing that years ago.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't getting the same type of attention that it's getting now. But I'm proud of him for continuing to go out and speak on a cause that is very important to him, has played a huge part in his life, because he does suffer from anxiety. There's no doubt about that. And he's trying to make the world a better place. And I give Royce a lot of credit for that.
No, you feel bad because you're right. If that happened today, it would be completely different in terms of how people and even an organization would handle it and try to help, where I think they didn't know what to do. Even 3-4 years ago, it was completely different. This team you've got now, what do you know about them? What are realistic expectations, or are they none right now? Because let's face it, you haven't seen any of these kids probably beyond on tape.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen them all on tape, and when the coaches would bring me a player, hell, my guys haven't missed a shot yet. The only thing I've seen is highlight videos. And they all look like all-stars. But I really like what I've seen, and I've enjoyed spending time and building relationships with all of them. And when I got the job here, we did a press conference, and that next day we were on a plane going out to see Hoiberg Green, who had committed to Tim Miles and his staff. He was playing at Western Nebraska Community College. So we got on the plane, went up to Scottsbluff, went and spent time with his family in Denver, and we're thankful that he kept his commitment. He's a combo guard that can play with the ball in his hands, can play off the ball. He's a downhill player that can play make. So I'm really excited about him. Cam Mack is one of the top junior college point guards in the nation last year. He's a jet with the ball. He'll fit in very well with up-tempo style of play. Excited about him. We've got 2 fifth-year transfers in Hanif Cheatham and Mate Kavas. Cheatham started at Marquette, went down to Florida Gulf Coast. And we're excited to have him with his unique skill set, and another guy who can put the ball in his hands to make plays. And Mate is one of the best shooters in college basketball last year, shot 46% from the three-point line at the University of Seattle. Some of the other guys, freshmen, Yvonne from France, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
That's terrific.
He's from Bordeaux, so I told him, I said, Yvonne, you don't come here, I'm going to come see you, and it's a pretty good wine region.
Smart move.
So, but it's crazy. I've got twin boys. They're 16, and they're going to be juniors in high school next year. They turned 16 on March 21st. Yvonne turned 17 on March 21st, and my twins are about 5'9", 150 pounds, 160 pounds. This kid's 6'8", 265, as a player that just turned 17. So he's got a huge future in front of him. Samari Curtis is a player of the year in the state of Ohio last year. Very dynamic, scoring guard, combo guard, averaged 34 in high school last year. Kevin Cross is a guy that at 6'6", 6'7", he can put the ball in his hands. He's got a unique skill set for a big. Deshaun Burke sat out last year from Robert Morris, another player that I think will fit in our up-tempo system. Akala Rope is a freshman from Omaha, very athletic player. And then the one guy who returns, our 2 points that do return from last year, is Thor. And, again, he started in the Big Ten, especially when they had injuries last year in Nebraska. And, it's a group that, again, I'm excited to see exactly what we have, Jeff, because you're right. I haven't seen these guys in person. We're going to throw a lot of things out there. We're going to experiment some with these practices with our trip to Italy. And like I said, hopefully get a head start heading into the season.
Are you surprised at how much more competitive it's been? You referred to it earlier on the transfer market now than when you first came, 10 years ago, whatever it's been, 8-9 years ago. You could, I don't want to say have your pick, but there weren't many schools that were going this route. Now it is legitimately almost, North Carolina, Fred, is going to potentially start 2 grad transfers this year.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And, when I look back at it, we took 4 transfers that first year, and we weren't competing against Kansas for transfers. We weren't competing against Carolina and Duke. And you see everybody taking them now. And, the one thing I'll say is there's a lot more of them now than there were when I left the college. There's almost 1,000 in the portal. So it's something that it's just, the landscape of college basketball right now and college athletics is, these kids are looking for with it, but I'll say this: the 4-year players that we had at Iowa State, Melvin Edgem and Monte Morris and George Niang and Naz Long and Matt Thomas and guys like that, those were the ones that really helped us get over the top. But the transfers were the ones that really helped us build that program and get it to a high level.
Just as long as Jack Hoiberg sticks it out for 4 years at Michigan State under Tom Izzo, right?
I think he's in a pretty good position when you got the number 1 team in the nation
That's
going
right.
into the season next year. It was when I got let go, I spent a lot of time in East Lansing, and for me it was a lot more. I had a lot more fun going to the practices because Jack had a huge role as a guy that ran the scout team. And when he hit that step back hit a step back jumper late in the game on CBS against Ohio State, it was just such a thrill to watch. It's funny how the game, they were up 20 or whatever it was. He goes in with 40 seconds left, and he hits what you would think is just a meaningless shot. But,
not for you.
It absolutely makes not for us, not for him, and
that's right.
not for his teammates, because how much work those guys put in it, and every day they're learning the other team's system, and there's not a lot of glory in that. So when they can go out and have a moment like that, it's really fun.
Do you think Izzo took it easy on him when you were there in practice, or no?
No, he jumped up his ass. It was great. I loved it.
He really did.
Jump Jack. It was awesome.
That's great. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to let you get back. You might still be able to catch Prices Right,
Yeah, I think it just started 12 minutes ago, so I'm excited.
I think you can catch the end of it and see who wins the Showcase Showdown. Is that what it is?
The Showcase Showdown. Yeah.
That's big. You should be really good about guessing the price of products now.
There's a great documentary on it was called The Perfect Bid. It was on. I was on a flight. I think we were going to spring break with our twins. We went to the Dominican for spring break, and on the category of shows and movies, there was a great show called The Perfect Bid, which was about a guy that memorized all these prices. It's Jeff. I'm telling you, it's worth watching. It's big time.
It's all right.
And that's almost me. It almost reminded me of my life at that time.
All right, I'll check it out. I got some other shows in front of that right now, but I'll put it on the list and try to get to it. I'm sure I will see you out Charlottesville in a couple weeks on the road, back recruiting.
We'll be there. Absolutely.
All right. Good to see you on the grind, and thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Fred.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff.
All right, take care, man.
Hey, sports fans. I'm Coach Nick of the B-Ball Breakdown podcast on the CLNS Media Network. I break down the NBA from a coach's perspective and have some of the best basketball minds join me weekly to discuss the latest NBA news and what's truly going on the court. Subscribe to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast wherever you get your podcasts or find us on clnsmedia.com. It's a great conversation. You in?